Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad that y'all could come. It's an important day and something that I'm very honored and pleased to kick off. It's legislation designed to make Texas healthier and to support the Making America Healthy Again legislation that we see taking off across our great country, but being spearheaded in Washington, D.C. I want y'all to know that I'm flanked by some great members here, both from the House and from the Senate, that I'll introduce in just a second. I want to thank Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. I'm so honored that he has given me a low bill number for the bill that I filed last Friday and we'll be having a hearing on tomorrow, but he certainly understands the importance of diet and healthy food choices to mitigate chronic illnesses and obesity in Texas. In November, the Senate Health and Human Services Committee held an interim hearing on the links between nutrition and chronic disease. And in May of 2024, the committee examined the growth in cancer diagnoses and the root causes. What we learned was startling, and probably to some of you won't come as a surprise, but I'm going to read some of these statistics. The U.S. spends $4.5 trillion annually on healthcare, with 90% of those healthcare expenditures on chronic and mental health conditions. Yet studies are predicting that by 2050, the U.S. will rank over 75th in world life expectancy. In other words, we spend more than any other nation, and by every metric, we are performing down here. For the last 45 years, the health of Americans has gotten worse. Obesity affects 20% of our children. 73% of U.S. adults are overweight or obese. Type 1 diabetes has nearly doubled in the past 40 years in the adult population. Early onset of cancers, meaning cancer in people under the age of 50, increased by a staggering 79% from 1990 to 2019. And 10 of the 17 cancers whose rates increased were related to excessive body weight. Earlier this month, President Trump signed an executive order establishing the President's Make America Healthy Again Commission, which is charged with investigating and addressing the root causes of America's escalating health crisis, with an initial focus on childhood chronic diseases. We have to do this for our children. Texas is joining this effort with legislation filed by myself and my colleagues here today. I see that Senator Hall has just joined us. Welcome, Senator Hall. Tomorrow, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services will have its first public hearing, and I think appropriately hear two bills. Don't worry, Senator, your bill is coming. It was a busy day tomorrow, and with all of the things going on, we're going to first hear Senate Bill 25 and Senate Bill 314 by Senator Hughes, the companion bill filed by Representative Harris Davila, and I'm so pleased that you're here today joining us. Thank you for your important legislation. A little later on, we'll have other hearings about this, and that will be Senate Bill 379 by Senator Middleton, and he'll explain that in just a second. But let me take just a couple of minutes to talk about Senate Bill 25 and what it is. You should have a packet of information on these bills, but Senate Bill 25 is a comprehensive effort to begin to address the causes of chronic illnesses and increasing healthier food options in a number of ways, but giving that information to the people so they make healthier decisions for themselves and their families. I like to say that it has 4 pillars, okay? And on these 4 pillars, what we have done is pillar number 1 is get moving. That is PE requirements that are expanded for our children, getting them moving. And I think this is going to help not only with chronic illnesses, but it's also going to help teachers in a way. How many of you have young boys that need to get out and get outside and get some of that energy out? And it has some real nice safeguards in there, like you can't have a prohibition on like a punishment. We're going to take away your PE. We're not going to allow that. We need kids out there moving, absorbing vitamin D as well, right? Pillar 2, nutrition curriculum. This is something that I discovered over the interim, which is we're not teaching good nutrition to our medical students. I was with a group of doctors, and I asked them, how many of you took nutrition classes during med school? And there were about 55 or 60 doctors, and only 2 raised their hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to require that of medical students, residents, and continuing medical education for all Texas physicians. We, in the committee substitute tomorrow, we'll have a half a credit for all high school students and all state colleges. Pillar 3 is an advisory council, and this is the Texas Nutrition Advisory Committee, and it is to examine the scientific link between ultra-processed foods and chronic diseases and make recommendations. And those recommendations then will guide some of our food pillars, and it will also guide what we see playing out in Senate Bill 25 and the other bills that have been filed this session. And then Pillar 4 is about food labels. This is where we inform the public on what's in your foods and why does that matter, okay? So if an ingredient is not permitted in most of the Western civilization, but in the United States, you're gonna have to put a label on it and say, this food contains something that isn't contained in the EU, Great Britain, or Canada. During one of my hearings, I think we put it up on the board. What's in Fruit Loops in America, the United States of America, and then what's in Fruit Loops in Canada? And why is there a difference? So I think for far too long, there have always been questions, but we're gonna try to get to the answers. And I will just tell y'all that I travel Senate District 18 I travel it a lot. And I started talking about this in speeches probably in the spring, summer, and people would just go crazy when at one point I was so frustrated that I said maybe Texas should have its own FDA and its own CDC, and people would go crazy. I pivoted to say I think that we can maybe restore the FDA and the CDC, but to say that we have to do something to really curb these chronic diseases and life expectancy. This is for our children, and this is for our grandchildren, and it's for all of us. But I'm so pleased to have flanked by me great members that are so talented, and I want to kick it to now and turn the microphone over to my good friend, Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. President Harry Truman signed the National School Lunch Act, and he said this: Congress has acted with great wisdom in providing the basis for strengthening the nation through better nutrition for our school children. He went on, we have the technical knowledge to provide plenty of good food for every man, woman, and child in this country, but that despite our capacity to produce food, we've often failed to distribute it as well as we should. In the long view, no nation is any healthier than its children, nor more prosperous than its farmers. That was in 1946. And as we've heard today, the government really has committed malpractice and failed our children in this most fundamental area. Senate Bill 314 is for our kids who don't have the privilege of choosing what they eat during the school day. The choice before them is to eat what's before them or go hungry, consume dangerous chemicals, or be malnourished. If an ingredient is linked to severe human harm, is unnecessary, and alternatives are available, state law will prohibit it from being served on that child's plate. This bill will affect more than 3 million students and over 8,000 schools. Texas will be the largest red state to lead on this issue, and we believe this will incentivize market players to make significant improvements in the quality of foods provided to the public. And I'll say this, after discussions with many stakeholders and continued research, today I'm announcing that we are expanding the list to include multiple synthetic food dyes and other harmful substances that are in school lunches today. I thank Lieutenant Governor, Chair Colcord, Senator Middleton, Representative Harris-Davila, Senator Hall, and this entire coalition, this diverse coalition that spans media markets and media channels and regions of the country and political views. This is about health. It's that most fundamental question. And so I'm glad to be here today, and I'm pleased to introduce Representative Caroline Harris-Davila, who's carrying this legislation in the House.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am State Representative Caroline Harris-Davila, and I have the honor of carrying this legislation when it comes to healthy school lunches in the Texas House. And I want to carry on part of what Chairwoman Colcord explained. You know, we get on the campaign trail, we talk to our constituents, we talk to moms and dads every day, and I heard from concerned parents every single day. People would stop me, would run after me after they got my push card, after I knocked on their door, and they would run after me to explain what we are doing when it comes to school lunches and how detrimental it is to our kids. And I don't know if you know this, but consuming ultra-processed foods can lower your mortality rate by 22% in some cases. And we're talking about our future. We're talking about our kids. We want the strongest future we can have in Texas, and we want to lead in Texas. And we're in this incredible age of information. We're seeing all of these new statistics, all of the data, and in Texas, we're going to take that and run with it. We're not only going to work on that when it comes to healthy school lunches, but as Chairwoman Colcord laid out, we are going to transform the way that Texans think about their health. And we are really going to harness that age of information, everything that we have available to us. And I am so proud to be a part of this movement. And so all the moms and dads out there, I just want you to know that we take it very seriously, protecting your kids and looking out for them and responding to our constituents, to what you've told us to work on. So I'm so proud to be here and stand with all of these wonderful members working on this issue. And I'll turn it over now to Senator Mays Middleton, who is also helping in this effort, and he's going to explain some legislation that he's working on as well.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Chair Colcord and Chair Hughes, for your hard work on this. So I filed a little bill called Senate Bill 379. And as we know, the SNAP, so that's the food stamp program, is about nutrition. So, and it's supposed to promote health and well-being, right? And so what this bill does is it removes junk food from the SNAP program. And as we know, taxpayer-funded junk food turns into taxpayer-funded health care, right? And that's why this issue is so important. I mean, you think about this where do chips satisfy that? Is that about nutrition and health and well-being? No. Does candy satisfy that? Is that about nutrition, health, and well-being? No, it is not. Cookies, is that about health and well-being? No, it's not. What about soda? Soda, so sweetened beverages with corn syrup. No, those are not about health and well-being. So clearly it's not even satisfying the intent of the SNAP program to begin with. And what Senate Bill 379 does is it removes these junk foods from the SNAP food program because we want to make sure that we're providing that healthy and nutritious food for Texans in need. And right now, those foods do not do that. So it takes them out of the program. And we've seen a lot of movement on the national level on that. I believe RFK said he'd like to see junk foods taken out of the SNAP program as well. So Texas wants to lead on this issue, and hopefully we'll get this moving quickly through the Texas Senate and make sure that we're ensuring the purpose of the food stamp program, which is nutritional assistance providing for health and well-being of all Texans. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, senators and representative, for being here today. I'm going to pivot this part of the conversation to the folks that have come from many parts of the nation to join us today. And they are leaders on this movement, and so I would like to introduce the great partners in this effort. Callie Means really needs no introduction. I was telling him earlier that I know exactly where I was the moment I heard my first podcast by he and his sister. And I sat there in awe listening to this, and I go, wow, we have to really rethink things. And I will just say that I think the good Lord sends us those messengers sometimes and sends those people that are willing to really step out. And as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, he would get down on his knees for the last 20 years and ask the Lord to put him in a place that he could really help people in becoming healthier and in chronic disease. So Callie is a co-founder of TrueMed, a health services company. He is co-founder of In Chronic Disease, a diverse coalition of health and nutrition advocates and entrepreneurs working to make the food supply healthier and to provide public awareness of the connections between diet, metabolism, and chronic illnesses. I'm going to hand it over to Callie at this point, but I will say this, and I want to echo something that my colleague said. This is not a Republican thing. This is not a Democrat thing. This is an American thing. And I could not be more pleased that Texas, which I believe is the leader of our nation, is going to lead on this issue and get out in front and really work to make our population more healthy and to impact the lives of so many children and young adults across our great nation. So, Callie, welcome.
I would add, in addition to being bipartisan, what's happening right now is spiritual. What we are doing to our kids is existential. 38% of teens in Texas having prediabetes, 50% of teens being overweight or obese. In the United States, we spend 3 times more on healthcare than Europeans and live 10 years less than our friends in Switzerland. There's something monumental happening, and what's fundamentally the case is that we are poisoning our kids through the incentives of our government programs, and then we are drugging them for profit. In the United States, we are 4% of the world's population. We are 75% of worldwide pharmaceutical profits. And we, as I think was said, we're 70th, 80th in life expectancy. There's something existential happening. I think it's been mentioned, Bobby Kennedy. We have nationally, I think, something very spiritual happening. Politics is messy, but what happened with Bobby and Kennedy and President Trump is historic development. I had a small insight into that. My sister, as mentioned, was at Stanford Med School. She was trying to do all the right things, but she realized she didn't take one nutrition course at Stanford Med School. She didn't learn one reason or anything about why people are getting sick. She only knew how to cut people open and write a prescription for them to profit from them being sick. She inspired me, and we've been out on this mission. We met Bobby Kennedy, we met President Trump, we met Democrats, we met Republicans. I had a small insight after President Trump was shot in Butler. I worked with Bobby Kennedy to connect him to President Trump, and I had an advantage point into their relationship, which was not based on politics. It was based on hours of conversation about the generational opportunity to stop the incentives of healthcare that are profiting from kids being drugged after they've been poisoned. What Bobby Kennedy said just a couple days ago is that states need to lead the way. And what's happening today is Texas leading the way. Bobby met with all the governors this past weekend. He said states are going to be key. The federalism structure is going to be key. And Texas is leading the way. And I want to be very clear about these bills. I'm a conservative. And a lot of people ask, and a lot of the media ask, well, isn't this like just Michelle Obama? Isn't this like the soda taxes? No, these bills are the Texas way. This is not bipartisan. This is not partisan at all. This is bipartisan, but this is the Texas way. This is not soda taxes here. What these bills are asking is, how do we educate people? How do we inspire kids? How do we inspire them about exercise? How do we get to the truth? How do we make sure our corrupt medical incentives don't infect medical education to where no doctors are even learning about the root cause of the disease? How do we fix the education element? And how do we fix the incentives? Everyone needs to realize this, right? This is not a ban. In Texas, we're free, it's a free state. But there's no reason that 15% of SNAP should be going to soda companies. We are sending billions of dollars a year from the Treasury to soda companies. And that then is underwriting our exploding Medicaid budgets in this state. Almost 90% of people on SNAP then go to Medicaid. And kids are getting sick. This is the Texas way. I would also just say very quickly, there's nothing conservative, there's nothing liberal about poisoning children. This food that's made in Texas, the cereal, the processed food, it has fundamentally different ingredients than in other countries for the same product. American companies are formulating their products with healthier ingredients and shipping them in other countries. They're shipping them right across the border to Canada. That doesn't make any sense. And having pure science, Texas taking the lead where the FDA has let us down. The FDA director under Biden said that they don't even know the chemicals in the food. It's self-policing. If the federal government has let us down, Texas has taken the lead on this. And I know Bobby is very grateful for this leadership and grateful for Texas leading the way. We've got a couple other national leaders that are going to say something real quick, and we'd love to take questions. But I'd love to introduce Jason Karp, who lives in Texas, has had one of the most successful healthy food companies, Hugh Chocolates, and now leads Human Co. to really lead the way in the free market. So I'll introduce Jason.
Thank you. Thank you, Callie. I'm a proud Texan, and I have inadvertently become known as the guy who held up the 2 bags of Fruit Loops in the U.S. Senate. And that was a historic moment that I don't think any of us fully appreciated how historic it was because of the gasps and the virality of when that happened. And what we did that day in the U.S. Senate, it was the Roundtable on Chronic Disease. What we did that day was we showed Americans, particularly mothers and fathers, and I am a proud father of 2. I am also someone who's recovered from several autoimmune diseases that were linked to food. What we did that day was we showed Americans that foreign countries that have far better health outcomes than we do are receiving American food that has far fewer chemicals, synthetic ingredients, and known carcinogens. And that created outrage because most Americans actually didn't know that. They didn't know that we, as parents, don't have a choice to have the healthier food. And what these bills that are coming forward tomorrow represent is a strong stance to protect our children, to protect the generations to come, and to say that we won't stand for this anymore. We know these are toxic. There's over 80 peer-reviewed papers showing that artificial food dyes cause harm in some way, shape, or form. And we're done with it. And so I am very proud to be here. I'm very proud to speak tomorrow. And I'm very proud to be a resident of Texas that we're moving this forward. Thank you.
We've got Brigham Bueller, who's been advocating this nationally on Joe Rogan and other podcasts, and is the CEO of Ways to Well, which is leading the way on preventative health.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. One of the things I said in front of the Senate is with chronic disease, if you really want to uncover and cure chronic disease, it starts with uncovering the root cause. And it runs deep and it's sinister. All of our institutions have been corporately captured. As we break down and methodically look at the food system, to the healthcare system, we cannot drive health span and prevent chronic disease if we don't get proactive and predictive. 1.7 million Americans die every year of chronic disease-related death, a preventable death. In fact, 87% of chronic disease is preventable. 60% of Texans are overweight or obese, and it starts with diet, lifestyle, and nutrition. So often people say that chronic disease runs in a family. The truth of the matter is diet, lifestyle, and behavior run in family. Epigenetics are the gun. The food and our choices are the bullets we put in the gun. And we can stop chronic disease in its tracks. But it starts with being honest with each other and honest with the corruption and collusion of our systems and fighting back. And I believe that this group here is the team to do it. I know they're not all from Texas, but they got here as fast as they could. So thank you, guys.
We have Grace Price, who's a student at the University of Austin and as a high schooler created a documentary called Cancer, Foodborne Illness about the relation between food and cancer that received countless views.
Thank you, Callie. I'm honored to be here. I could talk about what is wrong with cafeterias for a long time, but I thought I'd just bring an example from one of the #1 school districts in Texas called Eanes ISD. This is what was served in lunch today. So this looks like just Coca-Cola and kind of a sloppy Joe situation we've got going on here. What you don't know is that there are carcinogenic, endocrine disrupting, which means it totally ruins your hormone function and can lead to reproductive issues, and artificial dyes. And it's in multitudes of the things here. In the bread, there's a dough leavening agent. In the Coca-Cola, we have caramel artificial dye. In the meat, we have BHA. For the French fries, they were cooked in brominated vegetable oil, and all of these chemicals are targeted by SB 314. And it is absolutely vital that we remove these from our children's meals. There are over 3 million kids who are receiving these kinds of lunches, and this is the #1 school district in Texas today, guys, today. This is absolutely unacceptable. The goal of the National School Lunch Program was to end malnutrition. These kids are still nutritionally malnourished, and they're receiving chemicals that are taking their futures away. And we cannot pretend like this isn't their reality today. So please show your support for SB 314. Thank you.
And lastly, I'll just introduce Justin Mayers, who's been founder of some of the most successful Texas-based healthy food companies like Kettle and Fire, and my partner with TrueMed.
Thanks, Callie. Excited to be here. So I've previously started a couple different food companies and been advocating for a better food system. A 2011 study found that children that had to partake and relied on federal school lunch programs for their lunchtime nutrition, that was as severe a risk factor for them as having obesity and multitude other of chronic conditions as being born to parents that were already struggling with obesity. I think it's a travesty that this is the food that we're serving kids in federally funded school lunches today, and that we are literally setting up these kids for a lifetime of obesity and any number of other chronic conditions. So I'm really grateful for Texas's leadership here. I'm a proud Texas resident and really excited to support this bill. So thank you.
So, that was a lot. And I'm grateful for this example. Grateful for y'all's leadership. I mean, just incredible what y'all are doing across our state and nation. And so at this time, I'd like to open it up for questions. I won't answer all of them. I'm just going to open the mic up. Thank you, Senator Hall, for being here today. Senator Hall is on our committee and does so many great things in the healthcare space as well. Yes, ma'am.
Right. So the WIC program already does this, right? So the things that I talked about here are already not allowed under the WIC program, so that's a good example of that. Additionally, the state obviously incentivizes healthy foods by like fruits and vegetables not being sales taxable, right? So that's another way that we incentivize this. Of course, we also want to disincentivize the bad things, which is what this bill does as well, because frankly right now, the bad things are incentivized. So that's what this aims to fix, you know, and we're actually funding these bad health outcomes through taxpayer-funded SNAP funds, food stamps, and that's what we've got to end. And I know the new department that Bobby Kennedy is running right now is going to be an advocate for that. RFK said he wants to make sure this gets done. And look, we got to make sure that we're providing those better health outcomes. So at the end of the day, this is about doing what the program was designed to do, and that's nutrition and better health outcomes and, of course, you know, life expectancy as well. So, sure.
I would just frame it that this is a positive incentive. This bill on SNAP and the waiver that I know Bobby Kennedy and President Trump and Brooke Rollins at the USDA have asked for and are excited to improve is an incentive for Texas farmers. Right now, these SNAP dollars are going to large conglomerates to poison children. We talk a lot about food deserts. The food deserts are created by the SNAP incentive. You know, the SNAP is the 4th largest entitlement program in the country. This is $150 billion a year. And through corruption, not through the free market, but through a corrupt market where Coke and Pepsi have lobbied tens of millions of dollars to put, we're the only country in the world that has our nutrition program for lower income Americans go to ultra processed food. So the second this bill and this waiver is accepted, it actually creates a positive incentive for more innovation and support for local Texas farmers. I would also say you guys are going to hear from hunger groups. You're going to hear probably from the NAACP saying that this is somehow racist to not poison lower income kids. I used to be a lobbyist 15 years ago. This is how I started my career for the food industry. We funneled millions of dollars to the NAACP on this issue. The NAACP was a registered lobbyist for the American Beverage Association saying that it was racist to take food stamp funding away from Coke. There will be tomorrow, or whenever this is heard, there will be hunger groups. There will be people calling you saying that this is an attack on choice. You need to ask those people who they're being funded by. Because what's criminal right now to kids is that we're subsidizing ultra-processed garbage for them. And this is absolutely the moral place to be. This is not restricting choice. Coke is still going to be legal. It just shouldn't be government subsidized.
Next question. Yes, ma'am. Little off topic, but if Senator Hughes wants to answer it.
Yeah, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Every pro-life law passed in Texas in history provided for the life of the mother, for the health of the mother. Most doctors and hospitals are following the law. Those are terrible situations when the mom's life's in jeopardy. But since Roe was overturned, 130 or 40 abortions have been performed to save the life of the mother. There are, however, doctors and hospitals who are not following the law. So we'll have legislation this year to make it crystal clear and remove any confusion or any excuse for not treating a mom in one of those situations. And if I may say on this topic, while I'm at the microphone, there's a whole constellation of people working on this, and many of you were at this before I was, and Sheriff Colkhorst has led on this, so many people here. But I've got to say, I was introduced to this world before it was widely known. I became aware fairly recently about all these chemicals, dangerous chemicals in our food that we're eating that other countries are not being served. And I'm just one vote in this process, but I found out about this because my wife turned me on to this before anybody else was talking about it to me. So thank you again for letting me know what was going on. When she encouraged me to file this bill, I wasn't sure how popular it was going to be. I knew it was the right thing to do, and that's why we're doing it. But we're so pleased to see so much support, and so much encouragement, and we're going to keep doing this.
Thank you for your interest in children's health. Thank you for your interest in children's health. That was all about.
Hey, I've got to say something too, is that Layla, thank you for that. You know, my daughter, Lois Kate, really put me onto this as well. And so young people are starting to wake up to this, and we have to get this message out. And that's, you know, the three bills in combination are going to move the needle for healthcare in the state of Texas. We're going to make people healthy again. One last question? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Anna Maynard with KBTX. Senator Colkhorst, representing a more rural district, including Washington County. The initiatives that you've listed out in Senate Bill 25, how do you plan on making sure that all of those policies reach our more rural areas that typically are subject to food desert conditions?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Callie kind of talked about this is an opportunity for our producers and small producers to actually be freed and be able to raise their crops in a different way. I think that we're going to see the ability to sell fresh vegetables and fresh meats in different kind of scenarios, and we're looking to potentially incentivize that. And I have to say that sometimes obesity rates in rural parts of our state, healthcare in rural parts of our state really lack. And that's something I'm looking to improve. I've been moving the needle on that with our hospitals, with being able to have babies born in rural Texas. And so we're going to keep working on that. And, I'm working right now with producers on the labeling portion of this. It's they don't like it. But everyone will adjust, and there's a long runway out there. But I will tell you that, honestly, this is, I love our children, and I love our grandchildren and their future more than some labeling dispute that we will have. This is for the good of our children, our young people, and the future of Texas. I couldn't be more excited, and I'm so grateful to all of you who came today. Thank you for your expertise. I got to tell y'all this one last plug. This is a good visual. This is SB 25. Do you think we've done a little work on it? That we'll be laying out tomorrow. But I want to go back to Lieutenant Governor Patrick as well. Interim hearings matter, and a lot of this came out in interim hearings. Podcasts, listening to podcasts matter, and educating yourself. So a message to the people is educate yourself. We're going to help educate you in the grocery stores when you're buying those products to know what's in those foods so that you can buy healthier and smarter. And again, we're going to turn a page in history, and we're going to be healthier again. We'll make Texas healthier again, and we will make America healthy again. Thank y'all so much.